My name is Penelope Grant. I'm 32 years old. Imagine being handed a paper badge at your own sister's wedding that literally classified you as a second-class guest. That's exactly what happened to me last month, in front of 200 people. The limited access guest badge wasn't just humiliating, it meant no dinner, no assigned seat, just standing room at the back. After years of financially supporting my family through every crisis, after writing a $7,500 check just hours earlier for their honeymoon, I was deliberately excluded from the celebration. What I did next shocked everyone in that ballroom, but what I revealed afterward made my family's blood run cold. Before I share how I turned their wedding into their worst financial nightmare, please take a moment to like and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy this story. I'm curious where you're watching from and what time it is there. Now let me tell you how a simple paper badge led to the complete destruction of my family's financial future. The Riverside Grand Hotel stood like a monument to excess that Saturday afternoon. Madison had chosen the most expensive venue in the city, crystal chandeliers that caught the light like frozen tears, marble floors polished to mirror perfection, and floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the river. The chandelier alone probably cost more than what I'd lent them over the years. I arrived early, as always. The one who shows up first, leaves last, and somehow still gets forgotten in the family photos. My navy dress was modest but elegant. I'd specifically chosen something that wouldn't upstage the bride. In my purse, the envelope containing that $7,500 check felt heavier than it should. I'd written it that morning, depleting most of my emergency fund, because Madison had called crying about how the honeymoon package would be canceled without immediate payment. The irony wasn't lost on me. Just 3 months ago, I'd covered their parents' mortgage when Dad got laid off. 6 months before that, I'd paid for Madison's wedding dress when her credit card maxed out. And here I was, walking into a reception that probably cost more than my annual salary, funded by loans I knew they couldn't afford. 200 guests were already mingling in the cocktail area. I recognized distant cousins I'd met maybe twice, Dad's golf buddies, Mom's book club friends, even Madison's college roommate who she hadn't spoken to in years. They'd all made the cut for the full experience. The venue coordinator rushed past me, clipboard in hand, barking orders at the catering staff. "Remember, we have different guest tiers today. Check the badges before serving." I should have known then. But family makes you blind to the obvious, doesn't it? The registration table was draped in ivory silk, attended by one of Madison's bridesmaids, Chloe, I think. She smiled that practiced wedding smile as I approached, then fumbled through a box of name badges. "Penelope Grant," I said, though she should have known who I was. "Oh yes, here you go." She handed me a badge, but it wasn't like the elegant gold-embossed ones I'd seen other guests wearing. Mine was plain white paper with bold black text, "Limited Access Guest." "What does this mean?" I asked, turning the badge over as if the explanation might be on the back. Before Chloe could answer, my mother materialized beside me in her mother of the bride dress, a lavender creation that cost more than my monthly rent. She leaned in close, her voice barely a whisper, but sharp enough to cut. "That means no plate." "No plate?" I repeated, loud enough that a couple nearby turned to look. Mom's smile never wavered, that practiced society smile she'd perfected over years of country club lunches. "We had to make some adjustments. You understand." The couple next to us pretended to study their phones, but I could see them exchanging glances. Behind them, my cousin Janet whispered something to her husband. The registration area had gone quiet, that specific type of silence that falls when everyone's listening while pretending not to. Chloe cleared her throat awkwardly. "You can proceed to the reception hall. The ceremony's about to begin." I looked down at the badge again. Limited access guest. 3 words that somehow summarized my entire relationship with my family. But the worst part wasn't the badge itself. It was the realization that this had been planned. Someone had sat down, made a list, and decided I belonged in a category below everyone else. The reception hall was breathtaking, Round tables dressed in cream linens and gold accents filled the space, each centerpiece a small fortune of roses and peonies. Place cards in calligraphy marked every seat, except apparently for those of us with white paper badges. I walked through the room, searching for my name among the elegant cards. Table 1. Immediate family. My parents were there, Madison's new in-laws, even Madison's best friend from high school who she'd reconnected with 6 months ago. Table 2. Extended family. Cousins I hadn't seen in years. Great Aunt Martha who'd flown in from Florida. Uncle Ted who'd borrowed money from me last Christmas and never paid it back. Even distant cousins I'd never met had assigned seats. A server approached with a tray of champagne, then noticed my badge and smoothly redirected to another guest. The movement was subtle but deliberate. I'd been tagged like livestock, sorted into a category that everyone could see. Penelope, my cousin Janet waved from table 3. Where are you sitting? Before I could answer, Madison swept past in her wedding dress, a stunning creation I'd paid for when her credit card declined at the boutique. She glanced at my badge and I caught it. That tiny smirk, quick as a blink but unmistakable. She knew. Of course she knew. Standing room is in the back section, she said, loud enough for nearby tables to hear. We had to accommodate our priority guests first. Priority guests. As if the $30,000 I'd given this family over 5 years meant nothing. As if covering Madison's college tuition, when Mom and Dad's investment opportunity fell through, counted for less than being someone's +1. I found myself relegated to a corner near the service entrance, where a few folding chairs had been arranged as an afterthought. 2 other limited access guests were already there, a distant relative from Dad's side who'd had a falling out with the family, and someone's ex-girlfriend who'd apparently been invited by accident and couldn't be uninvited without drama. Derek, my new brother-in-law, walked past with his groomsmen, all laughing at something on his phone. As he passed, I heard him clearly. Yeah, that's the ATM sister I told you about. His friends chuckled. One of them looked back at me with pity. ATM sister, that's what I was to them. Not Penelope who'd sacrificed vacation time to help with wedding planning, not the sister who'd driven Mom to every chemotherapy appointment during her cancer scare, which turned out to be benign, though she'd milked it for months. Just an ATM in a modest navy dress, standing in the back with a paper badge marking me as less than. The wedding coordinator's voice crackled over the microphone. Ladies and gentlemen, dinner service will begin shortly. Please take your assigned seats. Assigned seats. For everyone but us. Standing there in my designated corner, watching servers arrange place settings for everyone but me, my mind cataloged every dollar, every sacrifice, every time I'd said yes when I should have said no. Madison's college tuition, $22,000 over 4 years because Mom and Dad's sure thing investment turned out to be a pyramid scheme. I'd taken a second job, worked weekends, missed my own college reunion to make those payments. Madison had graduated with honors, never once thanking me in her speech. The mortgage payments, $8,000 when Dad lost his job and Mom insisted they'd lose the house without my help. I'd drained my savings, put off buying my own place another year. They'd refinanced 6 months later when the market improved, made a profit, and took a cruise to celebrate their smart financial planning. I'd literally paid for the dress Madison was wearing. When we'd gone to the boutique, her card had declined. It's just a mix-up with the bank, she'd said, tears threatening her makeup. I'd handed over my card without hesitation. $3,500 for French lace and hand-sewn pearls. She'd promised to pay me back after the honeymoon. The honeymoon. This morning's $7,500 check, written before sunrise because Madison had called at 11 p.m., hysterical. They'll cancel everything if we don't pay by noon tomorrow. You're the only one who can help us, Penny. Please. Even now, watching my cousin Brad at the VIP table, Brad who'd been arrested twice and still owed Dad money from a failed business venture, I was calculating what I'd given versus what he'd taken. Brad had a gold-embossed place card. Brad would eat the $75 per plate dinner. Brad hadn't contributed a dime to this wedding, but Brad was real family. The math was simple and devastating. Over 5 years, I'd given them everything they'd asked for and more. Not loans, gifts, because family doesn't keep score, right? Except they did keep score. They'd scored me as limited access. My phone buzzed. An email notification from First National Bank. Subject line: Loan application pending your approval. I almost ignored it, but something made me look. My parents had applied for a $50,000 loan. As the cosigner, the timestamp showed they'd submitted it yesterday. The day before their daughter's wedding, while planning to humiliate me with a paper badge, they'd listed me as their financial guarantor. The wedding coordinator announced the grand entrance. "Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Mr. and Mrs. Derek Sullivan." Everyone stood and applauded. Even me, the ATM in the corner, clapping for the sister who designated me as less than, while expecting my money to remain more than enough. The speeches began with Derek's best man, who told a genuinely funny story about their college days. Then Madison's maid of honor gushed about sisterhood and bonds that could never be broken. My father stood next, raising his champagne glass. Champagne I noticed the limited access section hadn't been offered. "Madison has always been our shining star," Dad began, his voice carrying across the hushed room. "From the day she was born, she brought nothing but joy to our family. Her mother and I want to thank everyone who made today possible, the Sullivans for raising such a fine young man, our extended family for traveling so far, and all the friends who've supported Madison and Derek's love story." He thanked the venue coordinator by name. He thanked the florist. He thanked his golf buddy for introducing Derek to the family. He thanked Madison's college roommate for being like a second daughter to them. My name never crossed his lips. Mom took the microphone next, dabbing at her eyes. "We're so blessed to have such a complete family here today." Complete. As if I were an empty space, not worth acknowledging. The photographer moved through the room, capturing candid moments. "Immediate family photo by the windows," he called out. I started to walk over. I was immediate family, wasn't I? Madison's bridesmaid intercepted me. "Oh, this is just for the wedding party and parents." "But I'm her sister." "Right, but..." She gestured vaguely at my badge. "Maybe we can do extended family photos later?" Later never came. I watched them pose. Mom, Dad, Madison, Derek, his parents, his sister who'd flown in from Seattle. 20 minutes of photos, and I stood there like hired help, holding Mom's purse when she handed it to me without looking. Derek and his groomsmen gathered near the bar, voices carrying. "Your ATM sister looks pissed," one of them said. Derek laughed. "She'll get over it. She always does. Madison says she's desperate for family approval. Watch, she'll probably offer to pay for the bar tab before the night's over." That's when I decided to check something on my phone. I opened the email from First National Bank, scrolling past the legal language to the meat of it. Loan amount, $50,000. Purpose: home improvement and debt consolidation. Primary applicants: Robert and Linda Grant. Cosigner: Penelope Grant. Status: awaiting cosigner. Final approval. The details made my stomach turn. They'd used my social security number. Of course they knew it. I'd given it to them for their taxes when they'd claimed me as a dependent years ago. They'd listed my income, my position at the company, even my excellent credit score that I'd spent years building while they destroyed theirs. The loan terms were predatory, 18% interest rate because of my parents' credit history. Without my signature, they'd never qualify. With it, they'd get the money, but at a rate that would bury them, and me, if they defaulted. I remembered the call last week. Mom had been vague. "Just some financial restructuring, sweetheart. Nothing for you to worry about. We might need you to look at some paperwork, but it's really just a formality." A formality, like my attendance at this wedding. The approval deadline was Monday, 9 a.m., 2 days from now. They'd timed it perfectly. Get through the wedding, let the emotion of the day soften me up, then spring the papers on me tomorrow with tears and manipulation. How can you refuse after such a beautiful family celebration? Except they'd miscalculated. They'd shown me exactly what family meant to them before asking me to stake my financial future on their mistakes. Another email sat below it, from 3 days ago. Madison had forwarded a venue invoice to both my parents and me, probably by accident. The outstanding balance, $30,000, due within 10 days or legal action will be pursued. They'd only paid the deposit. They were counting on this loan to cover the rest. The pieces clicked together like a combination lock. The limited access badge wasn't just cruel, it was strategic. Put me in my place, remind me I was lesser, then graciously allow me to prove my worth by saving them financially. Again. The dinner service was beginning, servers flowing out with covered plates. The aroma of filet mignon filled the air. My stomach growled, but that was about to be the least of my problems. Standing in my corner, I did what I did best, ran the numbers. If I signed that loan, I'd be liable for $50,000 plus interest if they defaulted. And they would default. Dad had been between jobs for 2 years now, and Mom's part-time work at the boutique barely covered their country club membership they refused to cancel. But the financial cost was just the beginning. This was year 5 of the pattern, and I could see years 6 through 20 stretching ahead like a prison sentence. Every family event would follow this script. Public humiliation, followed by private requests for money. They'd trained me well, shame me into compliance, make me grateful for scraps of approval. The social cost was already visible. My VP from work, Sandra, sat at table 2, watching me stand in the corner like a punished child. She'd seen the badge, seen the exclusion. Tomorrow's office dynamics would shift. How could she respect someone who couldn't even command respect from her own family? Every family gathering, I was the wallet, never the daughter. The truth of it sat heavy in my chest. I thought about Thanksgiving last year. I'd brought a homemade pie and a check for Mom's emergency dental work. They'd seated me at the kids' table, literally, with the teenagers and children, while Madison's boyfriend of 2 months sat with the adults. The dental work turned out to be veneers, cosmetic. My phone buzzed with a text from Madison. "Stop looking so miserable. You're ruining the photos." I wasn't even in the photos. The opportunity cost hit me hardest. While funding their lifestyle, I'd postponed my own. The downtown condo I'd wanted, my down payment had become Madison's college tuition. The MBA program I'd been accepted to, that money went to their mortgage. The therapy I clearly needed, that budget line item was consistently redirected to family emergencies. Dr. Kim, my therapist from 2 years ago, had warned me before I'd stopped seeing her, couldn't afford it after paying for Mom's cancer treatments. "Penelope, you're not helping them. You're enabling them, and they'll escalate their tactics each time you comply." She was right. Last year, I'd been seated at the kids' table. This year, I didn't even get a seat. Next year, would I be outside looking in through the windows? Then the dinner service began. The servers moved like a choreographed dance, silver domes lifting to reveal perfectly plated dinners. The smell of garlic butter and rosemary filled the room. My stomach clenched. I'd skipped lunch to help Madison with last-minute preparations, ironing her going-away dress while she got her nails done. I was always the first to arrive, the last to leave. Every crisis, real or manufactured, I'd dropped everything. When Mom called about her cancer scare, I'd used all my vacation days to drive her to appointments. The tests came back benign, but she'd waited 3 weeks to tell me. 3 weeks of me sleeping in hospital waiting rooms, missing my best friend's wedding, losing the promotion to someone who'd been present while I'd been playing nurse to a hypochondriac. The fake illness had been the cruelest manipulation. I'd cried in bathroom stalls, terrified of losing her, while she'd posted photos from lunch dates with her book club, captioned "making the most of every moment." Madison floated between tables in her reception dress, A $2,000 confection I'd also paid for when she'd cried about Derek's family judging her for re-wearing the ceremony dress. She laughed with guests, posed for selfies, her hand displaying the wedding ring set that cost more than my car. Her Instagram post from last week flashed in my mind. Family is everything. So blessed to have parents who've given me the perfect wedding. The comments had poured in about what wonderful parents they must be. No mention of the sister who'd made it financially possible. A server approached with a tray, saw my badge, and pivoted away. The limited access guests beside me were sharing a bag of vending machine chips someone had bought from the lobby. We were the untouchables at a celebration of union. Derek's laugh boomed across the room. He was telling the story of their engagement, the surprise trip to Paris I'd helped fund when he'd come up short. Madison deserves the world, he was saying, and I'll spend my life giving it to her. With my money, apparently. Then the dinner service began in earnest, and my mother did something unforgivable. Sandra, my VP, caught my eye from table 2. She'd been watching everything, the badge, the standing room relegation, the servers avoiding me like I was contaminated. Her expression was carefully neutral, but I knew that look. It was the same one she wore during performance reviews when someone's leadership potential was in question. 3 other colleagues from my company were here. Madison had insisted on inviting them to show Penelope we value her career. They sat at respectable tables with proper place cards, while I stood in the corner like an intern who'd crashed the party. Even my professional standing was being undermined. Marcus from accounting whispered something to Jennifer from HR. They both glanced my way, then quickly looked away when I noticed. By Monday, this would be office gossip. Did you hear about Penelope at her sister's wedding? Her own family treats her like a doormat. How could I negotiate million-dollar contracts when everyone knew I couldn't even negotiate basic respect from my family? How could I manage a team when I couldn't manage boundaries with my parents? Last month, I'd been shortlisted for the CFO track program. Sandra had pulled me aside, said I showed exceptional financial acumen and leadership potential. But leaders don't wear paper badges marking them as less than. Leaders don't stand in corners while others feast. My phone lit up with a LinkedIn notification. Someone from the wedding, I couldn't tell who, had already posted a photo. There I was in the background, badge visible, standing alone while the real guests enjoyed dinner. The caption, "Beautiful wedding, such a loving family celebration." The irony was razor sharp. I controlled $50 million in corporate accounts. I'd saved my company $2 million last quarter by renegotiating vendor contracts. My signature could authorize purchases that would make this wedding look like pocket change. But here, in this room full of people who knew me since birth, I was nobody. Sandra raised her champagne glass slightly in my direction. Not a toast, but an acknowledgement. She'd seen everything. The question was, would she see weakness, or would she see someone about to set a boundary? If you've ever been taken for granted by family, despite being their biggest supporter, you'll understand what happened next. Drop a comment about whether you think I went too far. I genuinely want to know your thoughts. And if this story resonates with you, please hit that subscribe button. It really helps me share these important conversations about setting boundaries with toxic family members. Now let me tell you about the moment everything changed. The servers moved in perfect synchronization, placing plates before guests with practiced elegance. Filet mignon with truffle reduction, seared scallops, garden vegetables arranged like art. The limited access section watched from our corner as 200 people prepared to dine. A young server approached me with a plate, probably new, not briefed on the system. Before she could set it down, the catering manager intercepted her. "Check the badge," he said, loud enough for nearby tables to hear. The server looked at my white paper badge, then at the manager, confused. "No service for limited access," he said. "But," I started, "you'll need to check with management if there's been a mistake." His tone suggested there hadn't been. The conversation rippled outward. Table by table, guests turned to look at the woman being denied food at her sister's wedding. Some pretended not to notice, suddenly fascinated by their napkins. Others stared openly, waiting to see what would happen next. Madison stood up at the head table, clinking her fork against her glass. The room fell silent. "Before we begin our meal," she announced, her voice carrying clearly through the microphone, "I want to address a small logistics issue. Due to venue constraints, we've had to implement a tiered system for tonight's celebration. Some guests have restricted access. It's nothing personal, just practical planning. Not everyone contributed equally to this celebration." Not everyone contributed equally. The woman who'd paid for her dress, her education, her honeymoon, hadn't contributed equally. 200 faces turned to look at me and the other limited access guests. We were marked, labeled, publicly identified as less than. Someone actually took a photo. I saw the flash. "Those with restricted access are welcome to enjoy the cash bar," Madison continued, smiling like she was doing us a favor. "And there's a vending machine in the lobby." A few people laughed nervously. Most looked uncomfortable. Sandra, my VP, set down her fork without taking a bite, her expression dark. Derek added from his seat, not bothering with the microphone but loud enough to carry. "Times are tough. We had to make some hard choices about who really matters." Who really matters? My mother then did something unforgivable. My mother rose from her seat at the family table, smoothing her lavender dress as she took the microphone from Madison. Her smile was beatific, the perfect mother of the bride, ready to address her guests. "I want to clarify something," she began, her voice warm but carrying an edge I knew too well. "When we planned this wedding, we had to make distinctions between family who shows up and family who just writes checks." The room went silent. Even the servers stopped moving. "Some family members," she continued, looking directly at me, "think money replaces presence. They're always working, never available for what really matters, too busy climbing ladders to remember where they came from. Real family shows up with more than just money." The words hung in the air like a slap. The woman I'd driven to 17 chemotherapy appointments for a cancer she never had was lecturing me about showing up. "We wanted this day to celebrate those who've been present in Madison and Derek's journey," Mom said, dabbing at her eyes for effect. "Not just financially, but emotionally. Some people need to learn that family isn't a transaction." Aunt Martha shifted uncomfortably. She knew I'd been at every family crisis while Madison had been too busy with sorority parties and spring breaks I'd funded. "So, yes," Mom concluded, "we have different access levels tonight. It reflects the access people have chosen to give to our family over the years." She sat down to scattered, uncomfortable applause. The irony was suffocating. I'd given them complete access to my bank account, my time, my life. In return, I got a paper badge and public humiliation. Madison mouthed, "Sorry, not sorry," from the head table. The room buzzed with whispers. I heard fragments. Harsh but honest. Family drama. She must have done something terrible. Poor parents. I stood up slowly, my movement drawing every eye in the room. 200 guests watched as I walked, not rushed, not angry, but deliberate, toward the gift table displayed prominently near the entrance. I held the envelope up high. The gift table was a monument to excess. Crystal vases, silver frames, and envelope after envelope in a decorated basket. Mine sat near the top, the thick cream envelope I'd chosen that morning, Madison and Derek's names written in my careful script. I walked toward it with measured steps, my heels clicking against the marble floor in the sudden silence. 200 pairs of eyes tracked my movement. Someone whispered, "What is she doing?" Another person held up their phone, recording. The envelope felt different now, not heavy with generosity, but with years of taken-for-granted sacrifices. Inside was the check that would fund their honeymoon, written before dawn, because Madison had called in tears. Tears, always urgent, always me solving it. I picked up the envelope and held it high enough for everyone to see. Madison half rose from her chair, her face shifting from smug satisfaction to confusion. Derek grabbed her wrist, pulling her back down, but his eyes never left the envelope in my hand. "Is she really?" someone whispered. "She wouldn't," another voice said. "But I would. For the first time in my life, I would." My phone was still recording in my pocket, a habit I'd developed during family events after Mom had twisted my words one too many times. Every humiliation from tonight was captured. Madison calling me the ATM sister, Mom's public disgrace, the denial of food while others feasted. The wedding coordinator stepped toward me. "Ma'am, please return to—" I turned the envelope over in my hands, feeling the weight of $7,500 that could have been my freedom, my down payment, my MBA tuition. Instead, it was here, in a room where I wasn't even worth a $75 dinner plate. The choice was crystal clear. I could return to my corner, accept my designation as limited access, and continue funding people who saw me as nothing more than a credit line with legs. Or I could finally choose myself. Madison started running toward me. My phone had been recording since I walked in, a habit born from necessity. 3 years ago, Mom had twisted a conversation about boundaries into me threatening to abandon the family. Having proof had become essential for my sanity. The recording app showed 2 hours and counting. Every slight, every insult, every calculated humiliation was preserved in digital clarity. It had captured Madison at the cocktail hour, laughing with her bridesmaids. "We put Penelope in limited access. It's hilarious. She funded half this wedding but gets no dinner. Derek calls her the ATM sister. Isn't that perfect?" It had recorded Mom's whispered instruction to the catering manager. "The ones with white badges get nothing, especially my eldest daughter. She needs to learn humility." It had documented Derek with his groomsmen. "Penelope will still give us money. Madison says she's desperate for approval. Watch, she'll probably apologize for making a scene and double the check." My phone had been recording since I walked in. The weight of evidence in my pocket was more valuable than the check in my hand. Every word time-stamped, every cruelty documented. Madison didn't know about my recording habit. None of them did. They'd been so confident in their manipulation, so sure I'd never fight back, they'd said it all out loud. The email from the bank was screenshot and saved too. The loan application they'd submitted without my knowledge, using my information, expecting my signature. In some states, that was fraud. In all states, it was betrayal. I thought about my boss Sandra, sitting at table 2, watching everything unfold. Tomorrow, I could show her the recording. Not for pity, but for context. This wasn't weakness. This was someone gathering evidence before setting a necessary boundary. The venue's security camera blinked red in the corner. They were recording too. The humiliation would exist in multiple formats, from multiple angles. Good. Let there be no revision of history this time. Madison was halfway across the room now, her reception dress rustling with each urgent step. Mom was standing, Dad beside her, both preparing to converge on me at the gift table. They thought they knew what came next. The prodigal ATM would fold, apologize, probably write an even bigger check to prove her worth. They were wrong. Madison started running toward me. The loan documents were damning in their details. Monday, 9 a.m., the deadline for my signature. Without it, the application would be automatically denied. My parents had already spent money they didn't have, counting on my compliance. The venue's payment terms were clear in Madison's forwarded email. $30,000 outstanding, due within 10 days. They'd paid only the minimum deposit, gambling everything on that $50,000 loan. The honeymoon was booked on credit cards they'd maxed out. The flowers, the catering, the band, all on payment plans they couldn't afford. Without cosigner, loan denied. They'd built a house of cards, and I was the foundation they'd assumed would never move. The interest rate alone should have been a red flag, 18%, because their credit was destroyed. They weren't just asking me to co-sign, they were asking me to accept financial responsibility for their lifestyle. I remembered the venue manager's words to Mom during planning. Full payment is due within 10 days of the event, or we pursue legal action. Mom had laughed it off. Don't worry, we have it handled. Their handling was my signature. The wedding had cost approximately $75,000. They'd paid $15,000 up front, borrowed from Derek's parents. The rest was floating on promises and my expected cooperation. If I refused to sign, the entire facade would collapse by Tuesday. Madison was 10 feet away now, her designer heels clicking urgently against the floor. Penelope, what are you doing? Her voice was high, panicked. Behind her, Derek had stood up, his face flushed. He knew exactly what that envelope contained. He'd been there this morning when Madison called me, crying about the honeymoon cancellation. He'd probably coached her on what to say. Mom and Dad were moving too, Mom's society smile finally cracking. Dad looked confused. He probably didn't fully understand how precarious their finances were. Mom had always handled the money badly. The room held its breath. 200 guests waited to see if the limited access daughter would dare to retrieve her gift from the priority couple. Madison reached for my arm. Put that down, now. I opened the envelope slowly, deliberately, letting the sound of tearing paper fill the silent room. The check emerged, $7,500 written in blue ink, my signature clear at the bottom. I held it up so the head table could see the amount. That's our honeymoon, Madison screamed, lunging for it. I stepped back, keeping the check high, and spoke clearly so everyone could hear. Limited access guests don't give full gifts. The words landed like a bomb. I used their own language, their own classification system, their own cruel logic against them. Then I tore it. The first rip split the check in half. Madison's scream could have shattered glass. The second tear quartered it. By the third, it was confetti. I only contribute what I'm valued. You can't do this! Derek was charging over now, his face purple with rage. That's our money! No, I said calmly, letting the pieces flutter to the floor like snow. It was my money. From my emergency fund. For my family. But limited access guests aren't family, are they? The room erupted. Guests gasped, phones came out, and the wedding videographer swung his camera toward me, capturing everything. Madison dropped to her knees, trying to gather the pieces as if she could tape them back together. You're ruining everything, she sobbed, mascara streaming down her cheeks. How could you? How could I? After funding her entire adult life, after sacrificing my dreams for hers, after being publicly humiliated in front of everyone who mattered to my career and family, how could I? Mom reached us, her voice deadly quiet. Penelope Grant, you will write another check right now. No, this is not a request. Neither is basic human dignity, but you made that negotiable. Dad finally arrived, panting slightly. Princess, please, let's discuss this privately. Princess. He hadn't called me that in years, only when he needed something. There's nothing to discuss, I said. You classified me as limited access. I'm simply honoring your system. Then my father said the quiet part out loud. Derek's hand clamped around my upper arm, his grip tight enough to leave marks. You can't do this to family. His voice boomed across the ballroom, all pretense of calm abandoned. What family? I asked, my voice steady despite his fingers digging into my skin. I'm limited access, remember? Not priority, not equal. So what family are you talking about? Phones were out everywhere now, guests recording the spectacular collapse of what had been a picture-perfect wedding. The wedding videographer had abandoned the staged shots for this raw drama. Someone was live streaming. I could see the Facebook Live notification on their screen. Derek's parents rushed over, his mother's pearls bouncing with each step. Derek, let her go, she commanded, but he didn't listen. We're counting on that money, he shouted, shaking me slightly. Madison told me you'd come through. You always do. That's what you're for. That's what you're for. The mask hadn't just slipped, it had been completely torn off. Every guest heard it. Sandra, my VP, had stood up from her table, her phone clearly recording. The professional witnesses would remember this moment. Derek! Madison pulled at his arm. Stop it! People are watching. Let them watch. He released me with a slight shove. Your sister just cost us everything. The honeymoon, The what? I asked loudly. The venue payment you haven't made? The $30,000 you still owe? The loan you need by Monday? The color drained from Madison's face. She hadn't expected me to know about the loan. Mom stepped between us, her society smile completely gone, replaced with something feral. Penelope, stop this immediately. Like you stopped the servers from giving me food? That's different. You're right. It is different. You can't eat humiliation, but apparently you expected me to swallow it anyway. The wedding coordinator was speaking urgently into her headset, probably calling security. The DJ had stopped the background music. Even the servers had frozen, watching the train wreck unfold. Then my father said the quiet part out loud. You owe us after everything. Dad's voice cracked with desperation. We raised you. We gave you life. We need that loan approved Monday or we lose everything. The entire room heard him beg. Gasps rippled through the crowd. The word loan hung in the air like a confession. This wasn't about a wedding gift. This was about survival, and everyone now knew it. Madison grabbed Dad's arm. Shut up! Just shut up! But he was beyond stopping, panic overriding sense. 50,000, Penelope. You have to sign it. The venue, the vendors. We'll be sued. We'll lose the house. Robert, Mom hissed, but the damage was done. The guests were murmuring now, pieces clicking together. The limited access badges, the public humiliation, and now begging for a loan. The story wrote itself. They'd tried to break me down to build themselves up. So that's what this was about, I said, loud enough for everyone to hear. Humiliate me into compliance. Make me desperate enough for acceptance that I'd sign anything. That's not, Mom started. The loan application was submitted yesterday. The wedding was today. The timing isn't coincidental. Derek's mother covered her mouth in shock. You took out loans for this wedding? It's handled, Madison shrieked. It was supposed to be handled. By me. Their perpetual solution to every problem. Their human ATM who just needed the right combination of guilt and humiliation to dispense cash. The whole room heard him beg, someone whispered behind me. Dad's face was crimson now, realizing what he'd admitted. This is family business. Family? I laughed, but there was no humor in it. You made me stand in the corner like a beggar at my sister's wedding, and now you want to talk about family? The wedding coordinator approached with 2 security guards. Is there a problem here? No problem, I said calmly. I was just leaving. Mom grabbed my wrist. You mean the $50,000 loan? I said clearly, ensuring my voice carried across the silent ballroom. The one requiring my signature as co-signer? For a wedding that's already happened? I pulled out my phone, holding it high so those nearby could see the email from First National Bank. The header was clearly visible. Loan application, pending co-signer approval. Let me make sure everyone understands, I continued, my voice steady as a news anchor. My parents applied for a loan using my information without my knowledge. They need my signature by Monday morning, or it's automatically denied. The murmuring grew louder. Someone said, That's fraud! Another whispered, They used her information? The interest rate is 18%, I announced, because their credit is destroyed. They're not asking me to help. They're asking me to assume responsibility for debt they can't pay. Mom's grip on my wrist tightened. Stop talking. Like you stopped defending me when Madison called me the ATM sister? I showed the phone screen to the crowd gathering closer. This loan was their plan to pay for everything. The venue, the flowers, the band. It's all floating on the assumption that I'd sign. Derek's father stepped forward. We gave you 15,000 for deposits. And they spent it on appearances, I replied. Look at this reception. Look at the waste. They borrowed from you, maxed out cards, and planned to cover it all with my credit score. Madison was sobbing now, ugly crying that ruined her professionally done makeup. You're destroying my wedding. No, you destroyed it when you decided I was worth less than the money I could provide. The wedding planner was on her phone, probably calling the venue's management. The vendors would know by morning that payment was in jeopardy. The house of cards was collapsing in real time. Monday, 9 a.m., I said, waving my phone. That's when your loan dies without my signature. My mother grabbed my wrist tighter, her nails digging in. The looks on their faces when they realized their financial future was in my hands. Priceless. Have you ever had that moment when toxic family finally realizes they can't use you anymore? Share your story in the comments below. And if you want to hear how this all ended, including the shocking revelation from a family friend, make sure you're subscribed with notifications on. Trust me, the ending is worth it. Sandra, my VP, stood up from table 2, her voice cutting through the chaos with corporate authority. Excuse me, everyone. The room turned toward her. Sandra commanded attention, power suit even at a wedding, silver hair styled perfectly, the kind of presence that made CEOs listen. I think there's something you should all know, she said, walking toward our growing circle of drama. Penelope Grant is our senior financial controller at Morrison Industries. She manages over $50 million in corporate accounts. The silence was deafening. She's also, Sandra continued, the person who saved our company $2 million last quarter through strategic vendor negotiations. The board has been discussing her promotion to CFO track. Mom's grip on my wrist loosened slightly. Madison stopped crying mid-sob. Your loan, Sandra said, looking directly at my parents, was flagged in our risk assessment system. When someone in a fiduciary position is asked to co-sign high-risk debt, we notice. We were concerned about potential financial pressure affecting someone who controls significant corporate assets. The implications were clear. My parents' debt could impact my job, my career, my future, and my company knew about it. Penelope's signature authority exceeds most people's annual salaries, Sandra added. The fact that you would publicly humiliate someone of her professional standing, then expect her to assume your debt, is illuminating. Derek's mother gasped. She controls $50 million? Daily, Sandra confirmed. Your loan was flagged as predatory, by the way. 18% interest with your credit profile? Any financial professional would advise against it. The crowd was pressing closer now, the spectacle too compelling to ignore. My colleagues from work looked vindicated. They'd witnessed everything and would testify to my professional standing versus my family's treatment. We were concerned about her co-signing for high-risk borrowers, Sandra said, emphasizing the last 3 words while looking at my parents. High-risk borrowers. Not family. Not parents. Financial liabilities with a history of default. Then Carol, my parents' friend from their country club, pushed through the crowd. Madison, she called out, wine glass in hand, slightly tipsy. You got your wish. Everyone turned to look at her. Carol stumbled slightly in her heels, champagne sloshing in her glass. Madison, you got your wish, teaching Penelope humility like you planned. The words landed like a grenade in the silent room. Madison's face went white. Carol, stop. Oh, come on, Carol laughed, oblivious to the tension. You told us at the bridal shower. The whole limited access thing, brilliant. Penelope needs to learn she can't buy her way into being important. Your exact words. Oh my God, you didn't tell them it was your idea? Carol suddenly noticed the torn check pieces on the floor, the security guards, the phones recording. Her drunk smile faltered. Wait, what's happening? You said Madison planned this? I asked, my voice deadly calm. Carol's eyes widened as sobriety hit like cold water. Madison said, at the shower last month? What exactly did Madison say? Madison lunged toward Carol. She's drunk. She doesn't know what She said she was tired of you acting superior, Carol blurted, backing away from Madison. That just because you have a good job doesn't make you better than her. The badges were her idea to put you in your place. The crowd's murmur turned into an roar. Someone said, "She planned to humiliate her own sister?" "Carol, shut up," Mom snapped. But Carol was in full panic mode now, words tumbling out. "Linda, you were there. You laughed. You said it was about time Penelope learned money doesn't buy family status." My mother had laughed. My mother had known. My mother had approved. "You all knew?" I asked, looking between them. "This wasn't just Madison? You all sat around planning how to humiliate me?" Derek tried damage control. "It wasn't like that." "Then what was it like?" Sandra asked sharply. "Please, explain how planning to humiliate someone at a family event isn't exactly what it sounds like." Carol was crying now, realizing what she'd done. "I'm sorry, I thought everyone knew. Madison made it sound like a funny joke." Carol, now panicking at the destruction she'd caused, kept talking, the way drunk people do when they realize they've stepped in something terrible. "The badges were ordered special," she continued, tears streaming. "Madison showed us the design at the shower. White for limited access, gold for real guests. She assigned everyone personally. Madison planned badges last month. She even had a spreadsheet." Carol pulled out her phone with shaking hands. "She sent it to the wedding party. Look!" She held up her phone, showing an email from Madison. The subject line, "Operation Humility, Wedding Seating Strategy." Someone nearby zoomed in with their camera, capturing the screen. The email was detailed. Who got which badge, where limited access guests would stand, even instructions for servers. No service to white badges, especially P. Penelope. "You specifically marked me," I said, my voice carrying across the room. "This wasn't an oversight. You targeted me." "It was just," Madison started. "The email says no food service to white badges," someone read aloud from Carol's phone. "That's cruel!" Carol scrolled down frantically. "Oh God, there's more. Linda, you replied. You said, 'Perfect, she needs to learn her place.'" Parents knew and approved. Dad's face had gone gray. He probably hadn't known the full extent. Mom and Madison had likely kept him in the dark about the details, letting him think it was just family dynamics. "You assigned the no food rule?" Derek's mother asked, horrified. "To your own daughter?" "She's not acting like a daughter," Mom snapped, finally showing her true face. "She holds money over our heads, acts like she's better than us because of her job." "Because I have a job?" I interrupted. "Or because I use my job to fund your lifestyle while getting nothing but contempt in return?" The wedding coordinator stepped forward. "I need everyone to calm down, or I'll have to clear the room." But the truth was out now, spreading through the crowd like wildfire. The calculated cruelty, the planned humiliation, the deliberate starvation, all premeditated, all designed to break me before asking for my signature. I pulled out my phone. I pulled out my phone and opened the recording app. "Since we're sharing truth, let's share all of it." "What are you doing?" Madison asked, her voice high with panic. "Something I should have done years ago." I hit play and turned the volume to maximum. Madison's voice filled the ballroom, crystal clear. "We put Penelope in limited access. It's hilarious. She funded half this wedding but gets no dinner. Derek calls her the ATM sister. Isn't that perfect?" The crowd gasped. Madison lunged for my phone, but I stepped back, letting the recording continue. Derek's voice came next. "Your ATM sister looks pissed. She'll get over it. She always does. Madison says she's desperate for family approval. Watch. She'll probably offer to pay for the bar tab before the night's over." Then Mom's whispered instruction to the catering manager. "The ones with white badges get nothing, especially my eldest daughter. She needs to learn humility." Everyone heard their true colors. The recording continued. Every cruel comment, Every calculated insult, every moment of planned degradation played for 200 witnesses. The wedding videographer had his camera trained on my phone, capturing the evidence being presented. "Turn it off!" Mom shrieked, but I let it play. Dad's voice from earlier. "You owe us after everything. We need that loan approved Monday." The complete conversation, unedited, undeniable. When it finished, the silence was absolute. Even the servers stood frozen, trays forgotten. "You recorded us?" Madison whispered. "I recorded a family event," I corrected. "Like anyone would. The fact that your cruelty is on tape is your problem, not mine." Someone in the crowd started slow clapping. Then another. It wasn't applause. It was acknowledgement. They'd witnessed something unprecedented. Complete, documented exposure of family toxicity. "That's evidence of conspiracy," someone said. "Premeditated emotional abuse." Derek's father stepped toward his son. "We gave you money for this? To torment her sister?" "It wasn't supposed to go this far," Derek protested. "How far was it supposed to go?" Sandra asked. "Just far enough to break her into signing your loan?" I looked at my family, these people who'd planned my humiliation while spending my money. "Everyone heard your true colors. No revision of history this time." I opened the email from First National Bank and hit reply. My fingers moved across the screen with practiced precision as 200 people watched. "I'm declining the co-signature," I announced, typing each word deliberately. "Email sent to bank right now." "No!" Madison screamed. "You can't!" I turned my phone toward the crowd, showing the sent confirmation. "Loan officially denied." The timestamp read 8:47 p.m. The bank's automated response was immediate. "Co-signature declined. Application status, rejected." "Your financial planning should match your family values." "Limited," I said, looking directly at my parents. Mom collapsed into a chair, her face ashen. "We'll lose everything." "You gambled everything on my compliance. That's not a financial plan. That's extortion." The venue manager had appeared, having heard the commotion. She approached my parents with a grim expression. "Mr. and Mrs. Grant, we need to discuss your outstanding balance." "Not now," Dad snapped. "I'm afraid it can't wait. Without payment confirmation by Monday, we'll have to pursue legal action." The dominoes were falling in real time. No loan meant no venue payment. No venue payment meant lawsuits. Lawsuits meant bankruptcy. "Penelope, please!" Madison grabbed my arm. "The honeymoon is non-refundable. We'll lose thousands." "You mean you'll lose thousands? I already lost 30,000 over 5 years. Consider us even." Derek was on his phone, frantically calling someone, probably his parents, who'd just learned their 15,000 deposit had been wasted on a wedding built on lies and loans. "The vendors need payment too," the venue manager continued, consulting her tablet. "The florist, the band, the photographer, they're all expecting settlement within 10 days. Each word was another nail in the coffin of my family's financial fantasy. They'd spent money they didn't have on a spectacle they couldn't afford, assuming I'd cover it like I always had. "This is financial murder," Mom accused. "No," I replied calmly. "This is financial boundaries, something you should have learned before destroying your credit." The notification on my phone chimed. "Loan application rejected. Thank you for your response." It was final. Irreversible. Done. I turned toward the exit, my heels clicking against the marble with measured steps. The crowd parted like the Red Sea, creating a pathway lined with stunned faces and recording phones. "Penelope, stop!" Madison sobbed behind me. "The venue needs payment. We'll be sued." I didn't turn around. Each step was a declaration of independence from years of financial servitude. "Please," Mom's voice cracked. "We'll lose everything. The house, our reputation." Still walking, the exit glowed ahead like a promise of freedom. "You're destroying your sister," Dad shouted, his last attempt at manipulation. That made me pause at the doorway. I turned just my head, not my body, and delivered my final words to the room. Limited access works both ways. Then I walked out. Behind me, the explosion was immediate. Madison's wailing echoed through the doorway. Derek was shouting at his parents. Mom was arguing with the venue manager. The carefully orchestrated wedding had become a battlefield of blame and desperation. Through the glass doors, I could see the chaos continuing. The wedding coordinator was calling additional security. Guests were gathering their things, the celebration officially over. Someone, I think it was Cousin Janet, was comforting Madison, who'd collapsed in Derek's arms. The valet brought my car around. As I waited, I could hear fragments from inside. Can't do this to family. $30,000. Lawsuit by Monday. How could she? I tipped the valet and got in my car. Through the rearview mirror, I saw Sandra exit the venue, giving me a subtle nod of approval. She'd witnessed everything. My professional reputation hadn't been damaged. If anything, I'd shown decisive leadership under pressure. My phone buzzed with notifications. The video was already spreading on social media. Bride humiliates sister, sister destroys wedding was trending locally. But I didn't look at any of it. I drove away from the Riverside Grand Hotel, away from the family that had seen me as nothing more than a wallet with obligations. For the first time in my adult life, I was free. By the time I reached my apartment, my phone showed 47 missed calls. The wedding reception had imploded completely, and the aftershocks were spreading fast. My colleague Jennifer texted, "Reception ended 2 hours early. Venue manager shut it down. Your parents couldn't guarantee payment." The dominoes fell quickly. The band had stopped playing when the venue manager announced an early conclusion to tonight's celebration. The bar closed immediately. Apparently, that was cash only, and my parents didn't have any. The cake cutting never happened. The photographer left after demanding immediate payment for the work already done. They had to end the reception 2 hours early. A video from Cousin Janet showed the aftermath. Madison sobbing in her reception dress while guests awkwardly filed out. The beautiful ballroom emptying prematurely, servers already breaking down stations, the wedding coordinator arguing with my parents about breach of contract. Derek's mother could be heard saying, "We want our 15,000 back, tonight." The family text chain exploded. Aunt Martha, "What just happened?" Uncle Ted, "Penelope destroyed the wedding." Cousin Brad, "She tore up a check in front of everyone." But other messages were different. Janet texted privately, "Good for you. They've treated you like garbage for years." A great aunt I barely knew wrote, "About time someone stood up to Linda's nonsense." The video was spreading beyond family. Someone had posted it to the local Facebook community group with the caption, "Wedding drama at Riverside Grand, Sister Revolt." Within an hour, it had 500 shares and climbing. Comments poured in. The family got what they deserved. Imagine denying your sister food at your wedding. Team Penelope all the way. The parents are trash. But the real devastation was financial. The venue manager had given my parents a deadline: full payment by 9 a.m. Monday or legal proceedings begin. Without my co-signature, they had no way to pay. Their credit cards were maxed, their credit was shot, and now everyone knew it. Madison's perfect wedding had become the most infamous event of the year, but not for the reasons she'd planned. Instead of being remembered for its elegance, it would be remembered for its spectacular collapse when the family ATM finally closed for business. By Sunday morning, the social destruction was complete. The video had gone beyond local. Someone with a larger following had shared it with the caption, "This is why you don't treat family like servants." 20,000 shares. The comments section was brutal. "The mother is a monster. They deserved worse. Penelope is my hero." Madison's employer, Riverside Elementary, had seen the video. The principal called an emergency meeting for Monday. Teaching children required moral character, and publicly planning to humiliate and starve your sister raised questions. Parents were already commenting on the school's Facebook page. "Is this who's teaching our kids about kindness?" Derek's family was demanding an annulment. His mother had called off the family brunch, telling everyone that she needed time to process who her son had married. His father wanted their 15,000 back immediately, threatening legal action if necessary. Derek's sister posted on Instagram, "When someone shows you who they are, believe them. Family announcement coming soon." My parents were shunned at their country club. Mom's book club friends had a text chain that she was accidentally included in. "Linda is absolutely toxic. Poor Penelope. I'm not comfortable having her in our group anymore." Mom was removed from the chat an hour later. Dad's golf buddies were less subtle. One texted him directly, "Saw the video, that was disgusting, Bob. Don't come to poker night." The church they'd attended for 20 years was concerned. The pastor's wife called to say they should take some time for family healing before returning to services. Translation: Don't show your faces here. Madison's Instagram, usually filled with supportive comments on her curated life, was now a battlefield. Every post was flooded with strangers calling her out. She'd gone private, but screenshots were circulating. Her follower count plummeted from 5,000 to 300 in a day. Derek's family wants out. The revelation that they'd married into a family that would publicly humiliate their own daughter for money was too much. His mother had already consulted a lawyer about protecting their assets from any financial fallout. The Grant family name was toxic in our community. 3 generations of reputation destroyed in one evening. Monday arrived with brutal efficiency. The venue filed their lawsuit at 9:15 a.m. $30,000 plus damages, legal fees, and interest. The court documents were public record. Everyone could see the Grant family's financial humiliation laid bare. Madison and Derek's honeymoon was gone. The travel company had canceled everything when the credit card payment bounced. No refunds on the packages they'd booked. The luxury resort in Bali became a memory of what could have been. They spent what should have been their first day of paradise in a lawyer's office. My parents' mortgage was now in jeopardy. They'd taken a second mortgage to help pay for wedding deposits, counting on the $50,000 loan to cover it. Without that loan, they couldn't make next month's payment. The bank had already sent a warning notice. Everything collapsing. The florist wanted their $5,000. The band demanded their final payment of $3,000. The photographer wouldn't release any photos without the remaining $4,000 balance. Every vendor they'd charmed with promises was now demanding money they didn't have. Madison and Derek were fighting constantly. Neighbors reported screaming matches that lasted hours. "You said she'd pay. Your family ruined everything." Their marriage, not even a week old, was already cracking under financial pressure. Then came the bankruptcy lawyer consultation. Tuesday afternoon, my parents sat in a sterile office, filling out paperwork that detailed every asset, every debt, every financial mistake. The lawyer was blunt. Chapter 7 might be your only option. The wedding that was supposed to showcase their success would be listed in bankruptcy court as the final catastrophic expense that broke them. Derek's family filed their own lawsuit to recover their $15,000. They wanted nothing to do with the Grants, but they wanted their money back. It was business now, not family. The local news picked up the story. Wedding disaster leads to multiple lawsuits. They didn't name names, but everyone knew. The Riverside Grand Hotel confirmed they were pursuing full legal remedies against clients who failed to meet contractual obligations. Then came the messages. 47 missed calls in 48 hours. My phone became a monument to desperation. The texts started with fury. "Mom, Saturday, 11 p.m. You're dead to us." Madison, Sunday, 2 a.m. "I hope you're happy. You destroyed my life." Dad, Sunday, 6 a.m. "This is unforgivable." By Sunday afternoon, the tone shifted to bargaining. "Mom, let's talk about this like adults." Madison, "I'm sorry for the badge thing. Can we work this out?" Derek, "We can pay you back in installments." Sunday night brought the love bombing. "Mom, You're still my daughter. I love you despite everything. Madison. Remember when we were kids? We were so close. Dad. Princess, my heart is broken. Please come home. Their texts went from "you're dead to us" to "we love you" in 6 hours. Monday morning, when the lawsuit hit, came the threats. Mom, you'll regret this when we're homeless. Madison, I'll never forgive you. Never. Dad, you've killed your mother. She's having chest pains. The chest pains were fake. Aunt Martha texted me privately. Saw your mom at Starbucks. She seems fine, just angry. Then came the flying monkeys, relatives recruited to guilt me. Uncle Ted. Family forgives, Penelope. Cousin Brad. You went too far. Apologize. Great Aunt Helen. Your mother is suffering, have mercy. But I also got unexpected support. Janet. Stay strong, they earned this. Mom's former friend. Linda's been toxic for years. You did right. Sandra from work. The board was impressed by your boundary setting. Very leadership material. The most desperate attempt came Tuesday evening. Madison sent a long email with the subject line, Olive Branch. She offered to make me matron of honor at a vow renewal ceremony. We'll do it right this time. You'll be at the head table. Full access to everything. Please just sign the loan, we can still fix this. A vow renewal. For a marriage that was 5 days old and already falling apart. The delusion was breathtaking. I didn't respond to any of it. Every text, call, and email went unanswered. The silence was my response. 3 months later, my life had transformed completely. Sandra had fast-tracked my promotion. The board was impressed by what they called decisive action under pressure and exceptional boundary management. I was now deputy CFO, with a clear path to the top position within 2 years. My salary had increased by 40%. I joined a support group for survivors of family financial abuse. Hearing other stories, children drained by parents, siblings exploited for decades, helped me understand I wasn't alone. The therapist leading the group said my case was textbook. They escalated to public humiliation because private manipulation stopped working. Therapy was helping me process 20 years of exploitation. Dr. Kim, whom I could now afford to see weekly, helped me understand the pattern. You were designated the family rescuer before you were old enough to consent. They trained you to believe your worth was transactional. I'd moved to a new apartment downtown, a 2-bedroom with a view of the river. My family didn't know the address. The doorman had their photos with instructions. These people are not allowed access. Limited access works both ways, after all. I was dating someone new. Marcus, a financial advisor who understood boundaries. On our 3rd date, I told him the wedding story. He listened without judgment, then said, "You saved yourself. That takes incredible strength." He never once suggested I should reconcile. I sleep peacefully for the first time in years. No more 2 a.m. crisis calls. No more emergency transfers. No more sacrificing my dreams for their demands. My emergency fund was rebuilding. My credit score remained pristine. My future was my own. The wedding video had become something of a legend in our city. Sometimes strangers recognized me. "You're the woman from the wedding. Good for you." One woman stopped me at a coffee shop. "Your story gave me courage to cut off my toxic sister. Thank you." Madison and Derek had separated. The marriage lasted 2 months. The financial pressure, combined with the social humiliation, was too much. Derek moved back with his parents. Madison was living with Mom and Dad in a house they'd soon lose. But that wasn't my problem anymore. The final boundary came 6 months after the wedding. I changed my phone number, giving the new one only to trusted friends and colleagues. But first, I sent one last email to my family. "This is my final communication. The limited access designation you gave me at Madison's wedding is now permanent. Do not attempt to contact me through third parties, work, or social media. Any harassment will result in a restraining order. I wish you the financial wisdom you never showed me. Penelope." Limited access permanent. Mom tried to reach me through my company. HR intercepted the call and informed her that personal matters were not to be directed to the workplace. She tried again. Security was notified. The third attempt triggered a cease and desist letter from our legal department. Madison created fake social media accounts to message me. I documented everything and filed for a no-contact order. The judge, reviewing the wedding video and subsequent harassment, granted it immediately. Dad showed up at my old gym. The manager, whom I'd warned, had him escorted out. He tried my favorite restaurant next. They'd been briefed too. The maitre d' told him I no longer dined there, though I was actually in the private room, enjoying dinner with Marcus. The lesson was simple but profound. Your worth isn't determined by what you provide. For 32 years, I'd believed love was transactional. That family meant endless sacrifice with no reciprocity. That my value was measured in dollars given, not character shown. The wedding taught me otherwise. When they had complete power to honor or humiliate me, they chose humiliation. When I had complete power to save or let them sink, I chose myself. Family is behavior, not blood. My real family now includes Sandra, who mentored me through the promotion, Marcus, who loves me without conditions, my support group, who celebrates my boundaries, Dr. Kim, who helped me heal. These people show up with more than requests. They offer more than criticism. They see me as more than an ATM. What would you have done with that $7,500 check? Thank you for listening to my story. If you've survived family financial abuse, you're not alone. Your worth isn't measured by what you can provide. Please share this with someone who needs to hear that setting boundaries isn't cruel, it's necessary. Subscribe for more stories about standing up to toxic family dynamics. Comment below. What's the biggest financial boundary you've had to set with family? And remember, you don't owe anyone access to your success just because you share DNA. Until next time, protect your peace and your pockets.